Next on the list, John Mayer and Jerry Lorenzo quit drinking. Well, quite good kind of segue, or good not segue, but add on to the topic I was talking at hand. It's a cool little interview with Jerry Lorenzo and John Mayer. Jerry Lorenzo is gearing up to release these Nike collaboration, which I've kind of spoke about in a few other videos. I think on YouTube and on a couple other podcasts I mentioned. The trainer itself is probably not something that's my taste completely. Now seeing a few more images of it, I probably would wear it, but for what it is, it's really, really nice trainer, man. Because I always try to think, whenever these shoes come out, especially from these kind of new age dudes, the kind of like the new, let's say Hiroshi Fujiwara is my icon, right? Is my like streetwear godfather, my streetwear kind of like idol, right? I'd imagine if you're a kid now and you're 18, 19, your idols are Heron, Preston, Virgil Abloh, Jerry Lorenzo, the cactus flea plant flower marquee girl. Like, there's a few people, right, who you look up to, right? Maybe Samuel Ross from A Cold War, people that you like, that you kind of look up to as your idol. So it must be amazing when all these people that you look up to, who you think are awesome, are all releasing amazing shoes, right? They're all pointing out great stuff, like Matthew Williams at Leaks. It must be so cool to see that. So I kind of, whenever I see these shoes, even though they might not all be my cup of tea, I try to detach myself away from it for a little bit and step back and think, if I was 16, if I was 18 right now, and I went on Hypebeast and I saw Jerry Lorenzo's Fear of God and have done a Nike collaboration, right, a full capsule collection with a shoe and clothing, I'll be like, what the fuck? Even though they're Nike, I kind of throw in our collaborations. Everyone, right? Yoon for Ambush is getting a collaboration. Everyone's kind of getting a shoe. Now, just Sylvester got a Jordan, which was, a bit weird, but hey, everyone's getting a shoe, but still, like, regardless if everyone gets a shoe, what are you going to do with it? And Jerry Lorenzo does a really good job of that whole collection, really has a good way of kind of imbuing his kind of DNA and his brand philosophy into a brand. I think in the video I'm going to play just now, he mentions in the beginning that, the shoe itself, the reason why it looks so good, looks the way it does, because he kind of brought his last from Italy with him to Oregon to kind of for R&D and to kind of so they can build on top of, which kind of makes a lot of sense, because if you've seen any of Nike's recent efforts, especially some of their retros from before, they've all got that really annoying banana kind of toe box thing where they kind of always point up. And Jerry Lorenzo shoes, which I kind of like, and just in terms of silhouette, I really, really enjoy how flat the front of it is, and the kind of sharpness that he gets on his toes, I think is always really underrated. Something, again, I think only a nerd of shoes would kind of pick up on, but I've always appreciative of it, and it makes complete sense why this Nike shoe looks the way it does, because he, brought his last from Italy with him to Oregon, I'm assuming, where they were developing the shoe. But the conversation kind of evolves, and it kind of speak about my, again, the whole drinking thing that I was mentioning earlier. And John Mayer and Jerry Lorenzo are both now sober. Again, I don't necessarily think I'll need to become sober in that respect. I don't necessarily think I have that kind of problem, because luckily, again, I think it's only because I work a full-time job. I think if I was a full-time creative and you have a chance and you were getting, invited to as many fucking branded events as they do, plus the performances or appearances that they do in whatever place, and the free time on your hands, I probably would have to be sober. But I guess when you have a 9 to 5 and you've got 8 days blocked out for you to be at work and to be kind of sober, to be dry, it's hard to kind of develop a bit of an addiction in that respect. I'd assume, again, maybe there's people out there that have addictions that do 9 to 5, but I don't know how you'd be able to balance it. Going 8 hours without a hit or whatever you're on must be brutal. But this kind of like little part of the interview I thought was really interesting. Let me quickly switch this audio setting. Hopefully this works. But yeah, I thought this was a very interesting part of the interview. I'm going to load it up on the screen now. Hopefully it should play. Here's a video. Show it. Boom.
Quit 2 years Tuesday for me, man.
Oh, for real?
Both of you guys
crazy,
quit drinking. How did?
I'm 3 years in November.
Good for you. How is that?
That's crazy.
Next Tuesday. What effect has that had on both you guys? You both quit. Yeah. Professionally and personally.
I mean, my family life's better, my work life's better. I'm able to focus, but I don't condemn it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that some people can handle it and some people can't.
It's the most personal thing to people. It is, and I know it's one of the most personal things to people because
try talking to someone else about drinking. Try talking to someone else about how you haven't had a drink for 2 years, and watch what happens to them.
Instant judgment.
I don't drink that much anyway. I don't and if I were to tell other people how they could do it, it just is so particular to your own spirit and your own psychology that it's almost impossible to develop one way of explaining it to someone else. You have to fight really hard to look at it from a critical point of view, because it's constantly pushed on you. Every Friday and Saturday on social media, there is enabling going on for drinking. When your friend blacks out, if he dies, he dies. And me saying I won't have another drink 10 minutes later.
Captions, yeah.
What if I woke up every morning on Friday and Saturday and Sunday and put my feet on the ground and I just went, not hungover, and put it on social media every day, you know? Like, that would be an influence to people, because I think you forget that's an option. And if you look at drinking the way you would look at anything else, which is risk, reward, what am I giving up, what am I getting? It's some of the worst odds that ever existed. And I just looked at it like, I had one night where
especially when you get older.
Yeah, man, I just went deep one night. I remember being like, hey, what happens if I keep going? And it wasn't like dark, it wasn't sinister. I went, I always stop here. What if I keep going? It was really kind of like a oddly like playful kind of a thing. And then I went, oh, I'm done.
And did you go though? Did you keep going?
Listen, I have the most amazing last night of my life drinking story. It was Drake's 30th birthday party, and I made quite a fool of myself.
Really?
Oh, and it took me weeks to stop doing this every morning I woke up. And then I had a conversation with myself. And I remember where I was. It was like 6 days into the hangover. I was in my 6th day of the hangover. That's how big the hangover was. I looked out the window and I went, okay, John, what percentage of your potential would you like to have? Because if you say you'd like 60 and you'd like to spend the other 40% having fun, that's fine. But what percentage of what is available to you would you like to make happen? And there's no wrong answer. What is it? And I went, 100.
I want it all.
I said 100.
I want it all.
And then the voice in my head said, okay, do you know what that means? And I went, we don't have to talk anymore. I get it.
Let's go.
And that next year, I did 4 tours. I was in 2 bands. I was happy on airplanes. So what happens when you stop drinking? The level goes, it feels like boredom at first, but if you stick with it, the line straightens out and it goes kind of low, right? You're like, oh, I'm not having these high highs. But if you work, you can bring the whole line up.
Wow.
Which I totally agree with, right? So again, this only needs to be said for, like, you know, people in the Western world who are unable to kind of handle their drink or have very bad association with drinking, and drinking is always kind of a way to kind of you to get fucked up and for you to kind of forget your troubles, right? To kind of wash away your pain in some respects, right? You're not necessarily drinking for enjoyment, you're drinking so you can kind of, you know, put reality on pause, right? Temporarily until the next week. But it does need to be said, you know, for as great as it is, you know, it does waste a lot of time. Even though, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a 9 to 5, so I'm not able to kind of, you know, really lose myself to any sort of, like, you know, substance abuse for the most part, I think. And plus, you know, I started drinking fairly late in life because I spent most of my early, you know, teenage years and kind of, you know, early 20s in church, which kind of, you know, allowed me to kind of forsake some of those pitfalls that people go through. But I think in general, it does take up a lot of time. It really does. And when you're trying to do stuff, when you're trying to hustle, when you're trying to get out there and, you know, make something of yourself and trying to fulfill your potential, trying to realize your dreams, the last thing you need, the only thing that the thing that's non-renewable, the thing that you can't top up, the thing that you can't go and get more of or ask for a loan of is time. Like, you just can't get that back, and it's just so valuable and it's so fleeting, right? You can waste minutes, hours, perusing social media platforms, right? Watching erroneous videos on YouTube, in the same way that you can just waste hours and hours, finding a place to go and drink, then sitting down and drinking, then going through the process and getting yourself all the way up until you get drunk, going home. The time it takes for you to kind of get to sleep, waking up hungover and not being at your you know, full capabilities, it just takes up too much time. And when you need to actualize your dreams and you have a 9 to 5 that's already taking away 35 to 45 hours every week, you need to really, really be mindful of how you spend your time and what you do with it and the things that you're doing. And unfortunately, I think for the most part, when you go hard, I think for me, as I did beforehand during the party phase, you realize quite quickly that you need to kind of, personality as well. I'm always a bit of an all-in kind of guy. You need to realize how you'll be able to temper it. And for me, the easy way to temper it is just not to really go hard during the week. Monday to Friday, not go hard, and then weekend, do whatever you want to do. And usually, like with cheat meals, when you diet, even though you say you're going to have one cheat meal in a week, sometimes if you're really strict and you do things well, you probably just forget to have the cheat meal. You just continue eating healthy. And that's the same way with drinking. The more you kind of give yourself a bit more of a structure and a regiment around it, the more you start to realize how, the more you'll, I think, curtail the kind of, tendencies to kind of go hard in the paint. But that interview was very, very illuminating, super informative, so super nice to see two of these guys, and at different levels in their kind of creative timeline, talking about something they were able to do that was able to allow them to kind of actualize their potential even more. And I really recommend watching the interview, because Jerry Lorenzo talks about the pain and the struggle he had to go through, surrounding himself to making sure that this thing went well. So I think you mentioned Virgil Abloh mentioned the Nike collaboration too. I think Jerry Lorenzo mentioned it, how he kind of had a bit of a breakdown during the actual shoot of the 6th collection and debuting the Nike shoe, and trying and getting nervous about putting it out there in the first place. I think Virgil mentioned it too, fleetingly, like the pressure of the Nike deal, right? Because they're all these new icons in fashion who are kind of now become the new establishment. And for the most part, these kind of brands such as Nike, when they do end up collaborating with you, and you're a guy that was kind of trying to make it, sending a million prospective job offers or pitching ideas to big brands and being ignored and always being a bit on the periphery. When Nike finally call you up and say they want a collab, it's sort of like the ultimate vouch, sort of the ultimate stamp of approval. And all the kind of insecurities that you've had, that you kind of buried deep down in your psyche, will come rising back up the top again, because you realize just how exposed you're going to be with this collaboration, right? It's going to kind of elevate you, or elevate your brand, or kind of get you more exposure, but it's also going to expose the bits and pieces of you that aren't really fleshed out yet. You're thinking that in your head. So I remember Virgil mentioning once, before the Nike 10 collaboration came out, how nervous he was. Not nervous, but he was basically mentioning something along the lines of, if he got this wrong, the Nike 10 collection, he'd be dead. Like, that'd be it. He'd be cancelled from the culture, because already, there's already a bit of the hypebeast commenters don't really like Virgil anyway. They think he's a bit of a charlatan, and he's aware of the kind of, sentiment online, and, all the trolls and the comments and stuff. So imagine if he gets the Nike collaboration wrong, the trolls are going to come out and hate him. The people that are on the fence that don't like him because of his, he's a new kind of establishment, are going to come out with their knife sharpened. And the same sort of happened, I'm assuming, with Jerry Lorenzo, because he mentioned he had a bit of a breakdown, or just kind of trying to do really good work. It just takes so much more out of you that you just can't really, allow yourself to get too enamored with the whole alcohol thing. You kind of need to you need to sacrifice something. In order to kind of gain another thing. It's just one of those things you have to do in life. And I don't think there's any situation, regardless of what you're doing, that will not require some level of sacrifice. It just has to happen, especially if you want to reach a next level. I think if you want to make parallel movements in life, right, you don't really want to go up or down. You just want to make parallel movements, sidestep. Then I think you can, for the most part, life is quite forgiving. You can get away with just continuing as normal. But if you have any sort of aspiration, if you look, especially for me, even in my arrogance, when I have an inflated sense of self, but it's less to do with what I think. It's less to do with how good I think I am, and more to do with, if they can do it, why can't I? It's more of that, right? It's like, they're humans just like I am. They have ideas just like I do. They have a similar sort of creative background as I do, right? In terms of the things that we've kind of did back in the day, and something here, blah, blah, blah. We have a similar kind of story arc, right? Why can't I complete that end bit? it's just that's what it is. It's more so what other people do. I see that I could do as well, or something, or it's in a field that I'm interested in exploring. They happen to be in it. They're doing work, and I don't think it's way out of my league. Then I want to do it too. But in order to do that, you have to also analyze their journey properly and see what sacrifice did they make. And a sacrifice they made was something like this. You listen to John Mayer and Jerry Lorenzo talk about forsaking alcohol in order to, tap into the nether regions of their creativity. That means that they're missing out on quite a lot of things, right? That means that they're maybe not going to as many red carpet events. They're maybe not, maybe they're missing out on a couple of deals because some deals are only done in restaurants and bars. Maybe you're missing out on certain fashion industry events and stuff. Like you're based mainly in LA for Joe Lorenzo because you don't necessarily want to smooch around with the kind of flash and glitterati in Paris and stuff. So there's things that you're kind of forsaking in order just to kind of further your career, or to kind of solidify your position in the industry, or to kind of create history, to kind of bend space and time to your will. Like you're doing things, or you're sacrificing things for a goal that not everyone is going to acknowledge or even achieve. And again, like I said, I just don't think there's any area in life that doesn't require that. It all requires a sacrifice of some sort. You just have to decide which sacrifice it is, if you're willing to give it up or not. And if you don't, then you then can't complain, or you then can't point fingers at others who have paid the ultimate price, right? Who've kind of forsaken family and friends or to kind of achieve their dreams. That's where probably the lack of understanding, or some people have they struggle to understand the kind of hater mentality, because for the most part, haters do tend to snipe at people who are high achievers, who are kind of going for it, right? It's never really people who kind of are charlatans, or people that shouldn't really be where they shouldn't really be there, because for the most part, we have a quite good mechanism for getting rid of people who shouldn't be where they should be, who shouldn't be there, right? Who are like cheating the system for the most part. I think we're quite self-correcting as human beings, right? We can realize quite quickly, okay, this person's faking the funk. But I think for the most part, haters tend to go for people who are actually doing things, right? Sometimes it might not be something you agree with, it might not be something that you necessarily do, but we can't be the moral success police, right? You can't be doing the policing people saying, oh, you're not doing it the way I would do it, so I don't like you anymore. That's not what we should do, which probably explains why people don't understand the haters, because it's like, you're acknowledging that they're doing something, right? This is why you're hating them, but then you're also hating them because they're doing it for just because they're doing it. The sheer arrogance of doing it. It's a very weird way of thinking, but again, I think that might come from resentment because you don't do your thing, and then because you're finding it so hard, you're like, oh, how are you finding it so easy when they're not finding it easy? They're struggling as much as you are. Very, very weird communication going on around there. But yeah, like I mentioned, I recommend you check it out. Really cool. I think Jerry Lorenzo's shoe's coming out very soon too, so you should check that out too. And yeah, overall an amazing interview.